Hello. So I want to chat a little bit about some of the the warfare that goes on behind the scenes, the passive-aggressive, snarky stuff in these worlds between different teachers and different people's views on how to do things and how not to do things. And a really common one out there is visualization versus release, and training the senses and practicing envisioning all the sense gates outside of course stimulating them externally, stimulating them internally purposefully. So that would be visualizing something like this scene behind me, or these walls here when I go home, visualizing it, or envisioning whatever the hearing word for that would be, the sounds of the birds that I can hear in the background right now, being able to recall that later, remembering sense or bringing up sense that you remember from, say, food you ate or a forest you were in, etc., for the rest of the senses. And so from one perspective, this is a type of fabrication. You are creating something. And if you're looking at the practice from the sense of letting go of shape and form, of course, this is something that is in direct contrast to that, because you're literally creating form, which is in contrast to letting go of form, obviously. Duh. So from that perspective, why would you work on this? Why would you work on it? Now, from the perspective of other skills, of course, it's obvious why you would train stimulating the sense capacity internally. And that's a useful skill. If you want to develop your clair skills, this can be helpful. And it's helpful because it gives you the creative framework and practice for your sense gates to stimulate internally in relation to energy and information that might be coming through, that you might not be super consciously aware of outside of the clair senses, right? Now, the point of this little video is, how is this helpful, this fabricating process? How can it be helpful from the perspective of release and that ascension type path that you find a lot of more Buddhistic type practitioners exploring, that is about letting go of form and not having the insides be stimulated? Well, this is why. When you practice the creative cycle and getting deep inside the creative cycle, this allows you to really understand at a deeper level the destructive cycle. So what I mean by this is, when one of your senses is stimulated, there's a whole cascade of events that occurs after that stimulation, right? You have the thing that stimulates that, whatever that is. Maybe it's a sound, right? It touches the organ, that sense organ. When you've done a lot of meditation, you'll be very familiar with the intricacies of this process. And then from there, there's a whole series of events that takes place. A huge series of events that takes place where this, once it touches the organ, it goes through all these processes. And at different stages, there's aspects of craving and aversion in relation to this sense stimulation. Okay, so for example, when I started getting deep into meditation, I was always sitting in my room for a couple hours in the morning, couple hours in the evening, and just outside my window, I always had the window open because you want some fresh air. There was a woman who would always be out, outside her basement suite, talking on the phone or watching movies or getting drunk with a friend. And initially, of course, this was bothersome. But over time, one of the things that I learned to do was to start to pull apart the sense of sound, the stimulus of the voice touching the ear, And it progressed from it being words to me being able to release the form of these words. So then it just became sounds. And because it was just sounds, I no longer was wrapped up in the meaning of those words. And then it started to pull further and further back to where the awareness inside was getting closer and closer and closer to the point of the stimulus touching the organ itself, prior to any understanding of what it means, prior to any understanding both at the words themselves, but also the subconscious understandings of tone and all that stuff, further back beyond all that stuff to the point of the actual stimulus itself. So there's no craving and aversion happening. And then you end up being able to, in a way, divorce from that gate entirely, free the mind from any cohesion to that gate as a whole. And working the creative cycle helps us to understand and experience and explore the destructive cycle. Okay, so I hope this wasn't too complicated. This is from the internal experience when you're practicing, or when I've been practicing, and hopefully you find this helpful. All right, thanks for your time. Bye.